Hey, what's up? I'm Paul Heron, and today we are going to look at a scene from Darren Aronofsky's film The Fountain. This is chapter 5 on the DVD or Blu-ray. What's just happened is Tommy, the main protagonist, has just come out of brain surgery on a monkey that they were operating and doing tests on. And they almost lost the monkey, but then Tommy had this sort of stroke of brilliance or revelation where he looks up through this square window and kind of sees this some kind of light in the sky. And when this happens, he gets an idea about this sort of tree of life compound, and they decide to inject it into this animal. They don't have the results yet, but during the process of this, he also loses his wedding ring, which is kind of a theme throughout the film. And we'll address some of these shapes. Actually, let's talk about it now. In the previous scene, you see this square window, this sort of window out of the world. And the first thing that you'll notice about this scene is that it opens on this square, what I would call square. It's really rectilinear. It's the square of the screen. I don't think it's by coincidence that this picture is the exact same aspect ratio as the screen that you're looking at it on. As best I can tell, this painting was made particularly for this film. I haven't seen it anywhere else. I'm not familiar with who painted it. If somebody knows, that would be awesome to share that detail. But what you'll notice is that what we're looking at when we're opening up is this scene of, some kind of temple structure, but it sort of looks like maybe it has some Spanish influence. But what you see is some kind of palm type leaves, jungle type brush. It feels like maybe we're in the past, but what we'll find out is that as soon as this light of revelation is cast on it, when Tommy opens the door, we'll pull back and we'll see that actually we're in the present moment still. So this is kind of some misdirection on multiple fronts. It makes us think that we're in a different time, and that really challenges our notion of what is time within the context of this film and maybe outside the context of this film. Also, just for space, we have this illusion of depth looking into this picture. And that would be if we were viewing it on the wall without the flattening of the lens. So that is an even further contextualization of what we're watching. And the cinematographer, the filmmakers, seem to be playing with the viewer in this opening of this scene, both in the aspect of time and space. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's play it. So you see we're pulling out, we're kind of moving through this space, and then we realize this light makes it look like there's a sun or something, but then we see this frame, and here we are back at this character. Now you notice, let me just pause it here. You notice this little yellow bird. What is this yellow bird? Well, that's a good question, and there may be different answers, different ideas. One of the things I think about is right off the bat, you'll see in a second, this bird has been let loose, probably by Izzy, and he puts it back. I think in some ways, this reminds me of one of my favorite movies from Disney, Aladdin. There's a scene where Jasmine, the princess, is having this discussion with her father who wants her to marry, but she wants to be kind of a free spirit. And there's a beautiful scene there where she pulls out this little bird from a cage in the palace court, and then her father puts it back in the cage. And this sort of, in that scene, symbolizes this kind of protectiveness of her spirit or of her life. Then what she does is as soon as he leaves, she opens the cage and lets all the birds fly out into the sky. I think there's a similar thing going on here. where this bird is kind of been let loose. It's still kind of in the cage of this home, but it's at least out of its cage, and it's kind of trying to seek this natural habitat of its own, which we sort of see when it flies past the frame there. Also another, misdirectional cue to make us think that there's some illusion of depth or space, and also of a different time and place. So, the yellow, also the kind of gold color, represents this sort of death and rebirth, or even this illusion of life throughout the film. And what you'll come to see is that color in this film is very thoughtful. It's very logical, really, in the way that it's used. And you'll see a lot of golds. That's probably the main thing that they will talk about, whether they are talking about it outside of the film or whether through the language of the film they are presenting these colors. Let's keep going. Now here we are going through a window again. It's kind of a reiteration. And this is where we're kind of, this sums up the film, really. You have the main character, played by Hugh Jackman, kind of searching for his wife through time and space in this kind of star field. You notice these lights. Beautifully shot scene here. So here we come right back out, and it ends up, this is kind of the playfulness of the filmmakers in this scene. We sort of have had the joke played on us.
Come on. You're an old fart. Okay. Go on, look.
You see it? The gold star?
It's actually a nebula wrapped around a dying star. That's what makes it look gold.
So here you kind of have an exposition of what these colors mean.
When?
Junior high?
Also, let's pause right here. This is a good time to look at the idea of scale, both inside and kind of outside of in the creation of the film. You really have this philosophy of scale. You've got Hugh Jackman, the main character, is looking through this telescope at this huge, massive thing that's very far away. In the previous scene, we'll go back here and look at it. You've got him looking at the smallest, tiniest thing through a microscope that's very close to him. And so in this way, you have kind of just this big and small scale that there's not really much different. And that's further shown by the filmmakers in the techniques that they used to make this film. All the space sequences, all the stuff that you see in the sky that's nebulous and these kind of clouds, all that stuff was shot through a microscopic lens and then blown up to these huge proportions. And it's beautiful. And the idea is that at the smallest scale of the universe, we see similar physics, we see similar structures to the biggest things in the universe that we see through our telescopes. And so just all the way around, this is a very kind of holistic method of movie making.
The Mayans called it Xibalba.
Xibalba?
It was their underworld. The place that dead souls go to be reborn.
What are you talking about?
My book. I'm writing about it.
I thought it took place in Spain.
Begins there. Ends there.
Are you done?
Almost.
Good. When do I read it?
So again, we see this thing not just with scale of space, but temporality of time. And this film is kind of the ultimate time scale film. It shows this connection between three different narratives that are in some ways happening concurrently, at least in the experience of this film. I think that one of the things that Aronofsky is doing in this film is that he is focusing on the audiovisual experience of it, not necessarily trying to come up with something that is absolutely logical, but something that makes sense in a narrative fashion, something that makes sense in the experience of it. So, getting into too much analysis about, well, is it the same person? Is it a different person? I really don't think that matters as much as the experience of the film going between these different time worlds and kind of feeling like they all are happening at the same time, like they could be happening, like maybe this stuff is a cycle. And that's what we see in this structure of the film. And just to get back to the shapes, what you see is that you have a very square shape. And what I mean by that is that it's presented in a square, literally, as we've seen. But it's presented in a linear fashion. I mean, that's the way that you watch a film, is from start to finish. And that's a very square way of doing something because it's very clearly defined time-wise. But within that, we also see both triangles and circles. Now, a circular narrative, is the fact that this implied throughout the entire film is a cycle of death and rebirth. But then you also have this triadic structure of these three time periods, past, present, future. And all these things kind of come together in what I would call an audiovisual masterpiece that really plays with these shaping motifs in a very playful way, as we've seen, but also in a very serious and spiritual way that really takes us back to what I believe is the intent of the beginning of storytelling, of language, and maybe even of these shapes. Geometry, after all, was a philosophical and spiritual pursuit originally, and Aronofsky knows this very well. Let's watch this because I want to see this transition that's about to happen.
Someday soon it will explode, die, and give birth to new stars. How amazing that the minds chose a dying star to represent their underworld. Of all the healthy points of light in the sky, how did they find one that was dying?
Where are your shoes? Izzy, come on. Let's warm you up. Whoa, careful. Okay, I'll get it. Careful, Iz.
So here we kind of move into the space, and this is a great transition. It seems to be a traditional Hollywood kind of eye-line cut. We just looked at that, and now we're in it. But then watch what happens here. Remember, it's all shot in a little petri dish. Awesome. It's a good way to do visual effects. Wow. All right, so that is just an awesome transition where you kind of have this misdirection that, okay, now maybe we're going back to, the future. But what we see is that they're helplessly intertwined. And this symbol of this tree of life that he's floating with, is the body of his wife. And so this is really a very intimate thing to suggest, is that somewhere in the love of the relationship between these two kind of Adam and Eve characters, for lack of a better reference, is life. And that's about all I can say. So thanks for listening. I hope you'll watch the whole movie. Watch the remixed version. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this and on the film in general. I'll see you there. Thanks.